Hello, this video is to provide a brief overview of the 10 different reports digiCOACH has available. When you first log into the report portal on your website, you will find that there's 4 different types of reports. Our summary reports provide an overview of what's happening across the school site or district-wide. Our comparison reports make it easy to compare by schools, departments, or grades. Our coaching report allows you to see which strategies and coaching tips are being used and where. And our usage reports allow you to see who's completing walkthroughs, which teachers are being visited, things like that. So let's start with the summary reports. The first one I'll show you is the focus area summary. And I've got the reports preloaded across the top here just to save some time. Here's our first report, the focus area summary, and it's given us a bird's eye view of what's happened across this district that I'm logged into. This district is looking for these 5 focus areas: engagement, checking for understanding, schema, cognition, and learning environment. And I can tell that they've completed 237 walkthroughs by looking at the data here below the graph. Now, when this school has gone in and looked for the engagement strategies, they've seen them pretty frequently. About 78% of the time, they're seeing those 4 look-fors that make up the engagement strategy. If I mouse over, I can actually see what's making up that data. So I can see when the teachers go in, when the administrators go in to support the teachers, they're seeing interaction around 80% of the time. That's pretty close to what you would expect to see that based on what research says. But a pacing, we're not seeing appropriate pacing. We're only seeing it about 57% of the time. So that might be something that the administrators want to support the teachers more in, would be pacing. I can easily just mouse over each of these areas, and a pop-up will appear with the data that's available. Next report I'll show you is the Look For Summary. The Look For Summary report provides the same data that we just saw in that little pop-up on the previous page. The benefit of this report, it allows you to focus on just one area at a time. In this case, the first focus area, which was engagement. So here's that same data, that 79% for interaction, or that pacing at 57%. Notice there's these orange buttons up top here. These are filters. So if I wanted to filter to a specific school site or a specific grade level, I could do that. I could just say, just show me 3rd grade, or just show me kindergarten through 3rd grade data. I rerun the report anytime I've made changes to my filters, and that will then update. So you can see now there's only 49 walkthroughs represented here instead of the 230. All of the filters work in conjunction with each other too. So if I wanted to see just K through 3 in math, I'll rerun that report again. And now only 5 walkthroughs have happened in math, specifically kindergarten through 3rd grade math. I can also filter to some or one individual teacher. I can filter by individual time. Let's say I went out and I visited 10 classrooms today. I could come back at the end of the day, select current day, rerun this report, and get a snapshot of just the walkthroughs I completed today. And all the walkthroughs all the observers, everyone using the app, will appear here in the observer dropdown. So this will be able to filter. So if I go back to the original report, you can see it actually had 4 different people that was making up this data. So if I wanted to see just Mark's walkthroughs, I could filter down like that, rerun the report, and it looks like Mark doesn't have any with these specific grades and subjects. So I'll go ahead and turn those back on. And there we go. So let's do Mark, run the report. So 9 walkthroughs. Mark has only done 9 walkthroughs. Now if you notice, only 2 of the 4 areas are shown. That means the other 2 areas, which were interaction and wait time, have been skipped. Mark has never looked for those. He's always left them as skip. If he had looked for them and scored them at a 0, there would be a little 0 here for that particular look for. So if it's missing, that means it hasn't been looked for yet. All right, next report here is the Look For Analysis. So if you remember back on that first report, it was showing all 20 look fors. This is now drilled down into just one specific look for. In this case, we're looking at the focus area of engagement, and the actual look for, the question that we're looking at, is task. And I have some raw data here now. So again, 237 walkthroughs were completed. We went in the classroom and marked it observed 90 times. We tapped that green checkbox 90 times. We only tapped the red X 5 times, and the other 142 times we left it as skipped. Now you notice there's dark purple and light purple here, and the skip doesn't have a light purple. So the dark purple percentage includes all 3 answer choices. So if you notice 38 plus 2 plus 60, 100%. The light purple omits the skipped data. So instead of saying what did I see it, it's saying when I included it as a focus. When I went in and I specifically looked for that area of task, I marked it observed 95% of the time. I only marked it as not observed about 5% of the time. Again, all these filters work up here. If I wanted to switch to a different area, I would just use this drop down, tap Run Report, and once it refreshes here, there we go. So there's a little bit different data. So we've looked at interaction quite a bit more. We skipped it 55% of the time. We're only marking it observed when we look for it 79%. So another way to say that 79% plus 21% is only out of these 84 and 23 walkthroughs. We do have comparison reports, both a focus area and a look for comparison. So I'll first show you the focus area. This allows you to compare easily across different campuses. Or over here I could switch and compare it by grade if I wanted to. Tap Run Report after changing that. And now we can see how we're doing in each grade level. And this is the 5 focus areas. This is the average that we saw back on this first report here, the focus area summary. So just a quick way to compare across different schools, grades, or subjects and see if anything jumps out. For example, I can see that the blue area, cognition, is kind of low for most of our departments. The look for summary, the look for comparison rather, allows you to look at that same type of comparison report, but this time be focused on just one area, in this case engagement. If I wanted to look at a different focus area, I would just switch it over here. So we saw cognition was kind of low. I'll switch to cognition and run the report. And now we can see some data for each school site. Or if I switched it to subject and rerun the report, now we can see how each subject has been doing. Note there's some areas that have 100%. What that is telling me is that this school or this district has never marked not observed in the area of math or not specified. They've never pressed that red X in those specific subjects. So it is important to mark what you're not seeing during a walkthrough, just like it is to mark what you are seeing, so that way you have valid data and not just 100%. You'll note here there's no way to compare by teacher. The teachers are removed from the orange filters and there's no teacher filter over here as well. So that's something that we do not provide an option to do. Coaching summary. So this is a new report and this provides a kind of overview of not only the scores that we've racked up on our walkthroughs, but also an overview of those strategies, those praise statements where you're recognizing what the teacher's doing, or the coaching tips where you're providing ideas or strategies for the teacher to use. So let me go through and compare some of these things. Frequency, that's the focus of the walk. So this tells me that I included task 40% of the time in my walkthroughs. And if you remember back on this report, when we were looking at task, it was skipped. Reloading it here. Here we go. Task was skipped 60% of the time. So the focus is just the flip side of the skipped, basically. The positive, how much to actually use it. The score was 95%. Again, we could see that data on that same report. There's that 95%. The strategies. So we've used 15 strategies in this specific area related to task, and we've only coached on it 5 times. So that tells me that overall we're doing it pretty good. We're scoring high, we're praising quite a bit more than we are coaching. If I scroll down here, I see pacing is a little bit darker. We've actually coached 12 times. So the darker the area, the darker the color, basically just calls out which areas we've praised or coached more frequently on. For example, adjustment here pops out at us because we've coached 72% of the time, or not percent, excuse me, but just 77 times. Now, if you wanted to see what actually made up these numbers here, which tips have been used, you would want to look at the coaching detail. So this is the coaching detail, and it now provides you a preview of all of those strategies and coaching tips that have been used. So over here on the right, you can see their type. This is a strategy. And by default, it's sorted by which areas you've praised or coached most frequently. We call it the dosage. So we've used this tip in relevance 14 times. And if I click on this 14, it actually pops up and I can see which teachers have received that feedback and how many times. So this teacher has actually received the tip 3 times before, most recently back in July 2017. I can scroll down and I can also find a coaching tip here. So these 4 teachers might need some support in pacing. You can use these filters up top. One thing that you can do, let's say you're going in to support one specific teacher, you could filter down to just one teacher in this report, rerun it, and then get a snapshot of all the coaching tips and strategies that you've provided. So we'll look at Jeanette here. I'll wait till this finishes loading. And then once that's completed, I'll scroll to the bottom of the page, run the report. And here we go. Here is all the strategies and coaching tips in the area of engagement that Jeanette has received. So if I click, you'll see each one of these is just Jeanette. To switch to a different focus area, because right now we're only looking at the 4 look-fors within engagement, you would just switch to one of these different areas over here and then rerun the report. All right, next up is the user summary report. This is providing a bird's eye view of just how many walkthroughs each person at the school site has done. So you can see Chris Lopez, I'm in a demo account. He's done the majority of the walkthroughs because that's who I'm logged in as. Mark White has only done 13 walks. Cheryl's only done 1 walk. Lisa Johnson 10, and so on. You can also set a goal. So let's say the walkthrough was 10 walks so far. Put a number in there and rerun it, and this will color code based on how close to the goal each person is. So you can see Cheryl's within 0 to 20% of her goal, so she's in red. This peer observer account has done 3 walks, so that fell in between the 20 to 39%. Anybody that's blue is either 80% or over on their goal. 2 more reports. This one here is a frequency summary. It's a real quick overview of how many walkthroughs every school in the district has done. So we can see each school site here on the left, total number of walkthroughs that they've completed. This average score right now is actually broken, so it needs to be corrected in a future update. The total time, so we can see how much time that we're spending in the classrooms, the average length of the time that we're spending in the classrooms, and when the last time we actually completed a walkthrough was. So one thing you can do on this, if the school had a specific amount of walkthroughs that they needed to complete in a given month, I could filter and say, just show me March and rerun this report, and I could look and see which schools are hitting their goals. Is everybody completing, 20 walkthroughs or 50 walkthroughs or however many walkthroughs are expected of them. Last report, frequency detail reports. This is the last one on the page here. This provides you an overview of each teacher. So I can see Myra here, she's got an average score of 70%, which is pretty close to the school-wide average of 73. She has been visited 7 times. The administrators are in her classroom about 5.5 minutes, and she was most recently visited back on March 29th. Now, you'll notice some of these scores may be higher or lower. For example, Adriana here is at a 59%. So she's a little bit lower than the district or school average. And I could actually filter out and put different users here. So by default, the admin includes district, principals, and vice principals. The coach just includes the coaches, and peers. Now there's no data because I don't have anybody doing walkthroughs as a coach or peer. So what I could do is I could put individual users here like this. So I could put Chris, LaFay, Mark. I can even change this one over here. And let's put Cheryl, or we'll put Chris there. LaFay, Mark, and Cheryl. And then I'll rerun this report. And if you notice now, we have some data in each column. So I can compare walkthroughs completed by different people. For example, Keith Olive here has an average score from Chris at 71%, where LaFay scored him at 100%. Now LaFay only did one walkthrough, so that's probably not something to be concerned about if it's just the first walkthrough. But let's say both observers, did 10 walkthroughs, and one person was scoring at a 70 or an 80%, and the other person was scoring at 100% or at 40%. If they're very different from each other, there might be some calibration issues where when one person's going in, they're seeing one thing, the other observer's going in and seeing something different in that teacher's classroom. So what we would encourage is that the administrators and observers go into the classrooms together to look at that data. So that's it. If you want to hide the average score on this report, you can do that. Just uncheck this button here, rerun the report, and it will hide this average score column. I'll show you what that looks like here. This just allows you to print out this report without including any data on it other than just the number of walkthroughs that have been completed. Of course, each of these headings can be tapped to be customized on there if you want. Hope that helps. That's a quick kind of overview of all 10 different reports that we have available. If you have any questions, please let us know.